Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander David Shear. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer Douglas Bruce Jeffery. Douglas Jeffery was born on the 12th of November 1923 in the Melbourne suburb of Hawthorn, the son of Arnold and Alice Jeffery. He had a brother, Ian, and a sister, Jean, who died when she was only 2 years old. His father was a bank clerk and shop manager who had served in the First World War in France with the 24th Battalion before being medically discharged in April 1918. Douglas was educated at Scotch College in Melbourne and then attended Geelong College, where he was a bright student, coming third in his class. After leaving school, Douglas found work as a clerk with the National Bank of Australasia. By now, the family was living in Burnside in South Australia. Douglas Jeffery enlisted into the Royal Australian Air Force at Adelaide in December 1941. He later embarked for the United Kingdom, where he underwent further pilot training. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, Jeffery was one of almost 27,000 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in Britain throughout the course of the war. Jeffery joined No. 467 Squadron RAAF, which, as part of Bomber Command, flew the four-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. Shortly before 11:30 p.m. on the night of the 20th of July 1944, Jeffery and his crew set off from Waddington, England, as part of a major raid on the railway centre of Courtrai in Belgium. The squadron committed 14 aircraft to the mission. Flying Officer Jeffery was the pilot of Lancaster Papa Oscar Juliet. Although the raid was ultimately a success, No. 467 Squadron lost 2 crews. One of them was Jeffery's. His aircraft failed to return to base, and it was later determined to have been hit by enemy fire. After the war, it was determined that the aircraft had crashed near Marquet in the southwest outskirts of Courtrai. Also on board were Royal Air Force Warrant Officer John Eade and Australian Flight Sergeants Alan Hartley, Maxwell Roy, Philip Benson, Albert Downey and Thomas Roberts. There were no survivors. After the war, the remains of Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. While his crewmates had been buried at the Wevelhem Cemetery, Jeffery's remains had been found crashed through the roof of a house in Courtrai and was buried by the locals in the Courtrai St Jean Communal Cemetery. A cigarette case bearing his initials was found on his body and was sent home to his family. He was reinterred at Courtrai under the inscription Sic iter ad astra, a Latin phrase meaning, "Such is the pathway to the stars." He was 20 years old. Flying Officer Douglas Jeffery's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Douglas Bruce Jeffery, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We particularly appreciate your visit despite the challenges posed by COVID, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.